Welcome to another Real Talk podcast. This is a GenFit episode, which is where we look at ways in which we can make you fitter, faster, stronger, better. I'm your host, Ben Watson, founder of GenFit and general fitness trainer and educator. Today I'm with Rosy Ahuja and Michael Kissi doing part 2 of a nutrition-based podcast discussing high blood pressure, stress and anxiety. What are the main causes of each and what can we do to prevent or manage each one of them? Rosy is a nutritional therapist and health psychologist, and Michael is a functional medicine practitioner who works with people, treating them holistically, and is also an ambassador for Diabetes UK. Hi Rosy, hi Michael. How are you both doing today?
Well, really well, thank you.
Good. Thanks for coming in. So as we said, we're going to be looking at a few different topics today. But first of all, before we get into that, I just maybe wondered if you could tell us a bit about your week. How's it been going? What are you up to? What's a week like in the life of Rosy and Michael?
Do you want to? I'll go first. Okay. Well, it's obviously very hectic. A mother of 2 young, well, not so young children anymore, but you're cooking, you're cleaning, and then you're working part time. But then obviously I do the nutrition on the Friday, so everything is compartmentalized in my life. To be honest, I have dedicated time for particular things, and if it doesn't get done, but I've managed to get some exercise in this week, so I'm really pleased with that.
The banger as well.
Yeah, the banger exercise, and
that sounds fun.
Recommend that to anybody. You will feel it for days afterwards. But I think it's about time I did some exercise, as you need to, really, to keep healthy, to keep fit. And nutrition obviously is a part of the package, but you do have to exercise as well to stay well, really.
Good. Thanks, Rosie. How about you, Michael?
Well, I try as much as possible to stick to some basic health principles each day. In particular, my food, I try to cut out what needs to cut out and then use the right stuff, I watch my diet, as I said. And apart from that, also, it's been quite an exciting week. I'm working with some organizations, some churches and communities, to create diabetes awareness in my local community and in Coventry in particular. And it's really going very, very well. So I'm actually publishing a book.
Wow.
Well, that's amazing.
As a training material.
Good.
To help people, so it's really quite exciting. So I think it's been really great so far this week.
Good. And what would you say on a typical day in terms of food and nutrition, from when you wake up to when you go to bed? What does that look like? Or I don't want to expose you or anything, Michael, but what would that look like?
In terms of my diet? In terms of
what you're consuming?
Well, as I said, in the morning, I stick to a low carb diet, so probably I steam some broccolis and
for breakfast.
Yes, yeah, and then a bit of omelette and avocado and stuff like that, something like that. That's a typical. Or sometimes I do smoothie. I just blend a bit of avocado, then a bit of banana for the sugary bit, and then other vegetables, spinach, just to come out with some flavor. I try to change it here and there, but it's sometimes very good. And I don't normally take 3 meals. Only 2 meals a day is okay. So I try to space my eating habits. Like if I have the breakfast around maybe 10 or thereabouts, I take my dinners quite, somewhere around 5, or then that's it. The rest is just water and stuff like that. So I try to sleep also a little bit early. It's not always possible, but it's been a pattern. I try to stick to those basic rules. Yeah.
And what time would you be in bed?
Or some around after 9. After 9 most of the time. Yeah.
Good, so early.
Yeah, after 9 that's my earliest because of my activities. So at least after 9 I'm able to. I try to. It doesn't go beyond 9. After 9 I have to go to bed. Yeah.
Good. And how about you, Rosie? What's a daily kind of routine
diet.
like?
Okay, so basically during the school week I don't really eat until 1 o'clock because we have lunch at 1 o'clock, so I'm fasting until 1. I wake up, I have some lemon water, and that's probably it. Then at school I'll have just herbal teas or water or whatever. Then at lunchtime it's usually a salad with I always think of the protein content in the salad, so there's always some protein. If it's a meat protein, or there's nuts, or like I'll buy chestnuts or pine nuts and I'll put that in the salad, or chickpeas and lentils, and you can get them, you know, in water, organic ones in water, pre-done from the supermarket. Or I use those Brussels like the seeded Brussels sprouts, which are really high in protein as well. So I always think of the protein base, and then whatever salad I've got in the fridge, and I vary that salad, and then I just make up my own little dressing with it, which is usually some sort of, you know, peanut butter mix with some
nice peanut butter,
a little bit of manuka honey and a little bit of apple cider vinegar and some lemon again, and olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. And that's usually, I've, you know, changed the dressing according to what's in my salad. And that's and then I come home and I cook, because the kids demand sort of fresh food every day. And then and then I'll have dinner by like latest by 7. And then and the dinner is always varied, whatever we can, you know, it might be an Indian meal, and try and reduce my wheat content, to be honest. That's limited, but not saying that I don't have it. And then on the weekend I have breakfast as well, so then on those I have 3 meals in the day, and it's a bit more indulgent, I suppose. And indulgent, I mean not in sort of unhealthy food, but just indulgent in the amount of food that you're eating. But I find sometimes if I have a smoothie, I feel hungrier at lunchtime than if I'm fasting. And I actually, Michael, you could actually explain that to me, or why that is happening. But, you know, often in the mornings, I'm not, you know, if I fast, I'm like, I get to 1 o'clock and I'm not even, I'm not starving in any stretch of the imagination. But in the morning, if I have something to eat, or if I have eggs or whatever, then by lunchtime, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need my next meal. It's almost your body does adjust, your brain sort of trains you to expect certain foods. But I would highly recommend intermittent fasting. You feel great on it. You won't miss the food at all. You won't miss food. You think you will, but you don't. But you have to do it slowly. That's the key thing. So that's generally what I eat. I just think, like I've mentioned before in the previous podcast, I just think, what's that food going to turn into in my body? Wherever food is on your plate.
That's good.
Is it protein? Will it turn into fat? Will it turn into sugar? And basically, I always try to limit the carbs, as you do, but they're simple carbs. Always obviously have lots of vegetables, but always make sure there's a lot of fat and there's a lot of protein.
Good, great. That's good. It's good just to see the daily habits of 2 professionals such as yourself. So thank you. All right, so let's get into some of the topics we're looking at today. So the first one I wanted to talk about was is stress and anxiety. And if you don't mind, could you just go into what is stress, what causes stress, and you know what effect does it have on our body, and what ways can we reduce it? I know there's a lot of questions there, but tell us a little bit about that from your background, and maybe if you've got any examples of patients that you've treated or anybody that you've been involved with, then great, just pull those out as well.
Well, with stress, I mean, as a psychology teacher, you teach that, you know, stress is when the body can't meet the demands that are imposed upon it. And that stress has an impact on every aspect of that individual's life. So, and I think that unfortunately we don't actually appreciate how much it affects us physically, and that it will definitely have a physical impact. And the way it has an impact is to increase the cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone. And that actually is one of the biggest issues. Michael, would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's correct.
So with the raising of cortisol, that then releases into the body. And if you are stressed, what happens is that it's called cortisol steal. So your other hormones won't be produced as much as, because the cortisol is going to get the first priority. That cortisol, when it's being used up, like in the flight or fight response, when we used to have danger when we were cavemen. So when we were about to be attacked by something, we either ran away or we fought it. But now we're not in the same circumstances, but our bodies are still producing this cortisol, and there's no actually need for it. So what happens with this cortisol? It goes and turns into fat around the middle, essentially. And that fat is, so stress actually can have an immediate effect on your well-being, on you losing weight, and people don't actually recognize it. And it's really actually, and it's a cascade effect onto all of your hormones as well. And I don't know if Michael wants to chip in with in terms of levels of stress. What was the next question?
So what can we, I know it sounds fairly obvious in terms of ways in which we can deal with that. Is that related to anxiety, do you think? I know that's a slightly different topic. What can lead from maybe stress and anxiety, and are they kind of interrelated, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of food, in terms of stress and anxiety, you need to think about in terms of you need to sleep well, like Michael said, that you need to have good quality sleep every night, because at night time we produce melatonin, and melatonin is a precursor for serotonin. Serotonin is your happy hormone. So fundamentally, if you're not sleeping and you're not getting enough sleep, that's one of your biggest issues. Okay, so you need to sort out your sleep. Secondly, to encourage serotonin production, we can have tryptophan-rich foods. So tryptophan is a precursor again. So you need to have these foods in your diet. So that is, turkey is high in tryptophan. You can have eggs, you can have seeds, pumpkin seeds, sunflower, all of the seeds. So actually the seeds that we have a huge benefit on mood. And then obviously there are other herbs and supplements that we can have, like 5-HTP. But I mean, if you can do it through food, I always go try and sort out everything through food. Then supplements are to support you in your time of need, but I don't think we should be taking them on long-term basis. You have to sort out your lifestyle, and I think that everyone knows, we have to meditate, or you have to practice mindfulness, or you have to do some yoga, but actually people don't make the time to do it. It is one thing to say, I have to do this, I have to do that, but they don't do it. And you've got to think, right? And I find that if you go to a class, or I dedicate a certain amount of time, then I'm more fixated in doing it. And the other thing I'll just mention about stress is mindful eating. People just do not sit down and have their meals, and you don't focus on your meal, you don't think about the food, everything's in a rush. It doesn't allow your body to digest that food properly. So a simple thing like just sitting down with your family around a table and eating your food. No gadget on the table, no TV, no phone is another way to support you in terms of like lowering your stress levels and making sure that you're getting the nutrition from your food. Never eat food on the go. Just, I'd rather not eat than eat food on the
So
go.
Biologically, does it make a difference in terms of if I'm busy, like I did on the way over here, kind of quickly get dinner down me before I get in, does it make a difference if I'm sitting engaged in eating for, say, 10 minutes as opposed to, quickly doing something else while you're doing it? Does it make a difference?
I think it's not a good idea at all to be rushing into things and eating at the same time. Or sometimes you find people on their way to work, because they are running late, they want to eat. Like they grab the food on the train or on the bus and be eating. That's a disaster, because once you are stressful, you've conditioned the body to work within a certain dimension. There are certain signals, as Rosy said. Cortisol is released, and once cortisol is already in the system, it stops your digestive functionality. It slows down your ability to digest and all the kind of. It shuts up certain things and opens up certain things. So once you are stressful, you are doing something and you are eating, you are confusing the body, because at that level the body is not ready for food, but you are forcing the food there, so it can cause even digestive disorders because of stress. And you see, sometimes, as you said, stress, sometimes we underestimate the power of stress, because see, once you are stressful, it's like you prepare the body under some emergency, like you condition the body is like under stress. It's like you've seen a lion. The way your whole system will react when you see a lion, all your faculties are prepared towards helping you to overcome that challenge. And the body doesn't discriminate on stress. It could be that stress or that stress, but it doesn't matter. The same mechanism will set up in your body, and therefore we need to be very careful. So as a small example as you cited, even walking, eating whilst you are doing something, is still not good enough, because in the end it's going to affect your entire metabolic activity and can lead to all sort of issues in the body. So it's not a good thing at all.
I think we should give you a challenge, Ben.
Go on then, please. So, I'll welcome it.
We want you to compare sitting down and eating and chewing your food, each bite, say 25 times at least, compared to and how you feel after that meal.
Okay.
Compared to
how long?
No, just do it with one meal and see the difference in how you're feeling compared to when you're eating on the go. And like your stomach, your food will sit in your stomach. It won't digest as quickly as when you're. And the other thing, they often say that you should never eat when you're emotionally charged in any way. So if you're angry, or because your food again will not be digested effectively. So you've got to think about it, and that's why they say, you used to say the Lord's Prayer. You said the Lord's Prayer before your meal, because that was going to calm down. And once it's calmed down, you're going to digest your food. So it's always good, and that is probably apparent in every single culture. But we've just ignored these things, and these things were implemented at that time for a reason, okay, and they were all for our benefit. So we could implement all of these things, or just sit down for 2 minutes before you start your meal and just be silent, and then eat. And so we challenge all the listeners as well. Like, you can try it and see how you feel after.
Good, there you go. Challenge thrown out.
Can I say this?
Yeah, go on, Mike.
This is for the men. See, if your wife cooks food for you and then you don't appreciate it, you are going to mess up the digestive system.
Yeah.
So the beauty is that once she has prepared the food and you appreciate, oh, darling, I'm so excited for what I've done. That in itself calms you down. It's going to help you to digest the food better.
Good. There you go. Some tips for married men there. Good. And I want to come back to something that we touched on earlier in terms of sleep and having good sleep. And maybe Michael, you could maybe talk a little bit about this, especially as you're in bed at 9 o'clock. How do we get good sleep? Are there some things that we can do to get better sleep?
Yes, obviously you have to make sure. The first thing is that you need to make sure that your last meal, you don't sleep with your meal. Some people have their last dinner somewhere, that just after an hour they want to sleep, and that's a disaster. So if you put yourself under that kind of situation, you're going to struggle in sleeping. You need to condition the body, prepare the body to help you to sleep well. The point I'm trying to underscore is that you need to, when the body use the time of sleep, so adjust itself to, a lot of hormones, different hormones are released in your body to help the body to, reprogram itself. So at that level, you need to allow the body to relax and perform that functionality. So, for example, if you eat maybe less than an hour or within an hour that you sleep, obviously you're going to have some problems. So the first point I want to say is that make sure that to have good sleep, make sure that you eat at least 3 to 4 hours before you sleep. That's good. So by which time your food have moved out of your stomach area to go to certain areas. So that's the first thing. Also, you need to ensure that, of course, you have some people actually struggle with some environmental factors. It could be lighting system. Sometimes some of the light will affect your ability to sleep. Because some of the it release certain frequencies in the room. I'm even suggesting that it's advisable to switch off some Wi-Fi in your home, because all this electromagnetic radiation in a way can influence your ability to sleep. So all these are small things that you could do to help yourself. And then also make sure that some people are also unable to sleep when there's noise or distraction. So my suggestion is that we are all different in terms of our ability to adapt certain things. So you need to study yourself and find out what enables you to sleep. Some people are able to sleep when they put on little music. I'm not that kind. I want to make sure that by the time I'm sleeping, the place is dead silent. So you need to know what is good for you and apply that to your. So that's what I want to say on this here.
Great. And have you got any things that you do, Rosie, like on a daily basis?
I think in relation to sleep hygiene, I mean, it is a big issue now with phones and even on on phones you can turn off the blue light, because that does actually disrupt your sleep. You shouldn't be actually watching TV for an hour and before bedtime. A darkened room, I mean, I mentioned earlier about the melatonin production that is produced when you've got a completely darkened room. Any light does actually disrupt that. So you should sleep in a darkened room, or I sleep with eye patches, and your quality of sleep will improve. Now when I don't sleep with eye patches, I can feel the difference in my quality of sleep. So I mean, that's a little thing that we can all do. And we've mentioned the eating before bed, but making sure everything's dark, making sure that there's no phones in the room. I mean, I think that's the biggest disruptor of sleep at the moment, is people just so addicted to the phones, and if that notification comes up, we are addicted to go and look at it. So I don't have any phones in our rooms, and you have to lead by example. I can't expect the kids not to have a phone in the room if I've got my phone in my room. So we just have one charger, which is in the kitchen, and everybody charges their phones there, and I try to not look at my phone after 8 o'clock, because again, living by example, I don't want them to say, oh, you look at your phone, and then so it's these things. But I think sleep in teenagers is imperative. There are so many case studies of just you can sort out children's sleep, and then it improves your mental health, mental well-being. There's so much research on it at the moment, and they're under so much pressure. And I think that is one thing. But I think it needs to become like a family rule. Otherwise, it won't work. If one person, and if both adults in the house, if there are two adults in the house, have to follow the same rules. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's a hard one to implement, though, and it's a daily grind trying to reinforce, our lack of need of the phones. But unfortunately, that's where society is going, isn't it? And but you will find that sleep will improve.
Great. Brilliant. And then all the things that we've touched on, whether it be stress or anxiety or sleep or lifestyle, do you think there's a connection there between those and something like, say, high blood pressure? Do you think there's a link there? Well, first of all, what is high blood pressure, and do you think there's a link between those things?
Yeah, obviously. As she said, one sleep disturbance may influence your health negatively. For example, it is known that lack of sleep may lead to what you call insulin resistance. Your hormone insulin will not be working right. Somebody may develop insulin resistance because of wrong eating habits. Another person may develop insulin resistance because of lack of sleep. So we need to respect that. So we need to really encourage children and even as adults to pay attention to the beauty or the health benefits of sleep, because it will work for it to our advantage. Now, coming back to your question, high blood pressure is, it comes under the family of cardiovascular issues, and it's becoming quite rife now. Almost everywhere. It's the biggest killer in most countries. So it's something that we all need to be careful about. But fundamentally, the key thing that trigger high blood pressure starts from the vessel, the blood vessels. The blood vessel is a very extensive network. Somebody said when you link three people's blood vessels together, it will travel to the moon.
Yeah.
Wow, that's how extensive the blood vessel is. So, and about 60 to 70% of most of the cardiovascular, especially heart diseases, stems from the health of the blood vessel. Because basically, the body has got its own way of sending circulation across our system. That is, when the heart beats, it releases a pressure. At that level, the heart, being a mother, rests and begin to feed the rest of the body. That's how beautiful it is. That's the systolic pressure. The heart is relaxing. The heart says that I want to feed my children. That's the rest of the body. So at that level, the heart is not getting supply by itself. So it releases a big pressure through the body, to go. And after that, it relaxes a little bit. Then it fills itself up, and the cycle continues. That first pressure is called the systolic pressure. So. And then we also have the reflective pressure, the relaxing phase, that's the diastolic. So basically, the pressure, under normal circumstances, the pressure is around 180, 120 to 180 for an average adult, or 110 or 100 up to, thereabouts, sometimes even lower. So, but if we don't pay attention to our lifestyle, you realize that gradually we are increasing both the systolic pressure and the diastolic pressure. That's the first push of the heartbeat, then, and also the relaxing phase of the heart. So we found that the entire system we are actually, is the tension. We are building higher pressure because of what is going on. What happened basically is that the blood pressure is controlled by what is the issues happening in the blood vessel. Normally, the blood vessel is patent like that. So when the heart beats, it just allows the pressure to send circulation across the body. But I get to a stage which we build, by virtue of lifestyle, we develop what we call changes in our blood vessel. The structure of the vessel becomes a bit stiff, and then when that happens, then we are likely to have higher pressure because the vessel itself develops a degree of stiffness. Number one, because of some changes that are taking place, the inner lining or the wall itself. And when that happens, the whole system, remember the blood vessel is a muscle, it's a tissue. So by certain factors, we may allow the blood vessel to become stiff. And it's a natural phenomenon. As we are growing, we tend to increase a degree of stiffness in arteries. But if we pay attention to our health, we may be advancing in age, but we may slow down that progression. So it happens when we develop changes in the blood vessel, and then the heart has no option to raise the pressure to a certain degree. So that's basically what I will say about it for now. Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. And then Rosie, so what is like a high blood pressure reading? And how do we know, let's say, for example, if we do have high blood pressure, what are maybe some of the signs or symptoms? How will we know that we've got it?
Well, when you start suffering from high blood pressure, you can feel it. Like you might get headaches, or you feel the stress will cause as well. You can feel your body heats up, etc. And people feel you feel a sense of uneasiness, But there's a lot that you can do to reverse high blood pressure, because it is a lifestyle thing as well as a food thing, a diet thing. And one of the first things you can do is cut caffeine. Okay, caffeine will have an impact on your blood pressure by 20%. It will increase your blood pressure by 20%. So I don't say saying okay, cut out all caffeine, but you be aware of how much you're drinking. Secondly, is cutting out sugar. Again, sugar is the dangerous thing, unfortunately, in so many illnesses. But it's so addictive and it tastes so nice, and we all want to eat it. But if we start reducing our sugar, and then in the first part, just go for natural sugars, then what I would advise someone who has got high blood pressure, take some garlic every single day. A clove of garlic crushed, leave it to stand for 15 minutes. It allows the active ingredient, which is allicin, to rise to the surface, and then drink water with that. Some people can't tolerate raw garlic, in which case you can get capsules. Another herb that you could use is hawthorn, and that you can just buy that, and that hawthorn is known to also reduce blood pressure. Another thing is, I've had clients with high blood pressure. That's why I know exactly like how you could support people, is magnesium-rich foods, and if not magnesium. So you can do Epsom bath salts and have that, and have a soak in Epsom bath salts, because the magnesium is also transdermally absorbed. You can actually take magnesium, be very conscious of the type of magnesium you're taking, like there's magnesium glycinate or magnesium citrate, because they absorb much better into the blood. And the job of magnesium is to relax you, so it will relax the heart muscles as well, and these are all beneficial.
And where can we get magnesium from?
Well, I would make sure that you get a good quality source. I mean, things like Epsom bath salts, which is magnesium, you can actually just buy from TK Maxx, and some of the cheap BM bargains. I've seen them there, and I don't think there's anything wrong with them. You can just buy it from there. But I would be very careful with the magnesium that you buy, because sometimes these are filled with cheap fillers. And always look at the milligrams that you're getting. How much actual magnesium are you getting? And like I said before, the most absorbable forms are magnesium citrate and glycinate. You can buy them from, I wouldn't say the main, Haight, Holland and Barrett, like they may have some better quality ones, but just be careful with what you're buying, because you don't want to be wasting your money. You think you're buying a certain product, but you're not. But magnesium-rich foods, green leafy vegetables, these are all magnesium-rich foods. Incorporate those into your diet on a daily basis. Fish oils is another thing. Like getting your good fats helps the heart as well. So making sure your omega-3s, you're getting your omega-3s, and your omega-3s, your omega-6 is balanced, which are all going to be very, very helpful. And there's another one, the last one that I'll just mention is hibiscus tea. Hibiscus tea, if you have 3 cups of hibiscus tea today, that is also known to reduce your blood pressure. And it's not awfully tasting, and you just incorporate it into your lifestyle. So instead of having that cup of coffee, have a hibiscus tea, because you have to take ownership for your well-being, because especially with high blood pressure, it is just a recipe. It doesn't, unless you make a conscious effort to reverse it, it will progressively get worse, and then it is just the bedrock to all other illnesses, and so you're asking for trouble. So just reverse it while you can. And it's not, we're asking for major changes. It's just like little things. And because, like I've said before, you add foods, and I always think add foods, don't think about what you're taking away. And as you add, then you don't have a desire to eat the bad things anyway, or that sort of, because you're full on the good stuff, then you don't need any of the bad stuff. But it does take some thought, and I know it takes planning, and it takes habits to change, but you've got to start somewhere. And you just make one habitual change a week, and then add that into your diet. Then the following week, like I have clients who come to me who are 96 years old. I have a client where I go to give the free advice, and he comes every 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks I make one minor change. So we've cut out tinned pears, and we've moved on to fresh pears, and we cut out custard, and then we've cut out artificial sweeteners. So we've done it slowly, and he's 96 and he's doing really, really well. But it's just little changes. Don't expect yourself, because then you have that sense of failure after haven't done it. Think about what you can do, what is manageable for you, and do that, and do it slowly. Then once you've adapted that change, then make another change. I don't know if Michael wants to add to that.
That's really wonderful. That's really wonderful. In fact, I'm happy about this topic, because we all know that blood pressure is becoming quite rife. One thing I will say is that high blood pressure in itself is, I would call it a symptom. It's not the main issue. It's a result of something. So, and part of it, as you said, it could come from your sugar intake, because you in the breaking, sugar may break down and build up in your system to eventually lead somebody into high blood pressure. There's something we call metabolic syndrome. That is where you have this disorder, because of the sugar, is eventually building up issues in your system. Part of the symptoms of that is that you have your liver fat goes up, your cholesterol level, which is also fat, goes up, and other blood fat goes up, and then blood pressure is also one of them. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that if we're able to watch our sugar, like high carb intake, we are in a way going to help us to control our blood pressure, because eventually that will end up us getting into high blood pressure. Another new research that has come forth also is lack of certain vital vitamins and minerals may predispose somebody to high blood pressure, and that is because those deficiency of those essential vitamins may predispose a damage into the blood vessel. One of them typically is vitamin C, the whole spectrum of vitamin C. If somebody is lacking vitamin C over a period of time, it may predispose the person to damaging the inner lining of the blood vessel. So the new research is showing that lack of vitamins, especially C, is even more dangerous than cholesterol, because most of the time we push you push the blame on cholesterol. Most health professionals will tell you if you have high cholesterol, you're almost about to have a heart attack or die or have high blood pressure. But I tend to differ a little bit. The issue is that once we're able to, because the new research shows that the key things, cholesterol is not even an enemy, because cholesterol is a repair mechanism. You see, cholesterol has a lot of benefits. Without cholesterol, you have sex hormones and other factors. I don't want to go into all the details, but one in line with high blood pressure or blood vessel issue, cholesterol actually goes into the body to repair the damage that's caused within the inner line of the blood vessel, what's it called, the endothelium, the inner lining. Because once we have that deficiency, we have the gap between the cells of the endothelium, they widen up, okay? And then the collagen there also is not healthy enough. So cholesterol, the body sends cholesterol, especially that, to patch it up. But in the process of doing that, it overshoots. And then with time, it builds up plaque and then stiffness and tension in the arteries. So the point we are trying to drive home is that if we are able to pay attention to our general health, cutting out a lot of extra carbohydrates and stuff like that will push more, it's eventually going to help us, to improve our outcome. I don't believe that we can actually limit our scope only to taking high anti-hypertension drugs and sustain and come out of it. There's no way anybody can come out of high blood pressure by taking medication. I'm not saying that people should not take medication for their blood pressure, but the wisest thing that each and everyone can do is to watch what you're eating, because once you apply this, it's definitely going to ensure that we have enough vitamin C and other essential minerals that will protect the integrity of the blood vessel, and therefore it will not push us into that danger. Even if you have a blood pressure, by virtue of applying those principles, you are not going to aggravate the situation.
And then also, in terms of certain vitamins are fat soluble, aren't they? Like A, D, E, and K, they're fat soluble. So
vitamin E's and stuff.
So that means that what does that mean?
That means you shouldn't buy them when if they're not in a capsule form for a start, because they're not going to be absorbed. So when you see A, D, E, and K and they're in a pill form, it's a waste of money. It really is a waste of money. You must buy it to get those benefits from those. So vitamin D, is another one. That probably is a talk on its own, really, to be honest. But vitamin D, all of these are essential vitamins. But what I would say about, I don't advise people to just say, right, I'm going to take vitamin A or I'm going to take vitamin E, because also too much of these fat-soluble vitamins can become toxic. So there is hypertoxicity. And now there is danger that actually with vitamin D, because that seems to be the new vitamin and everyone just seems to be taking vitamin D, that there is evidence that there is hypertoxicity. So you should get it. Also, always check the blood levels of vitamin D. The doctors can do it if they want, but I've had mine done from the GP, but you can get them done privately, and it's something like £20 just to get your vitamin D measured, and it's usually to do it just after the winter months to see what your levels are, and before, so every 6 months to check that you don't go too high on your vitamin D or any of your fat soluble, because they can be toxic. So even vitamin A, I wouldn't advise anyone just to take these vitamins without actually seeing some professional, really. Okay, so but food wise, you can have it like chicken liver is very high in vitamin A, and it's so beneficial for you. It doesn't have any fat on it, as long as it's organic chicken liver. I would advocate you have that, and try and do it through food. So always try and do things through food. Good quality food is going to nourish your body, and supplements are there to support, but not as a daily thing to just to make the body rely on, I won't eat good food, I'll just take some supplements. I don't think there's any supplement that I would say would replace food. Go for good food, wholesome food. Real food is what we're looking at, really. Food that you could, there's a nutritionist, and he suggests that, Michael Pollan, he said that you never buy food which has more than 5 ingredients in it, because actually that is what else you're going to have in that food after 5 ingredients is not really going to be food. So if you take your kids shopping and say, yeah, you can buy it as long as it hasn't got 5 ingredients in, you won't have much in your shopping trolley from the kids. I honestly, it's quite a challenge for them because they're looking around finding things with only 5 ingredients, and all the rubbish has much more than 5 ingredients in. So, just be conscious of what we're eating. And, if your grandmother doesn't recognise that as food, then think, oh, I shouldn't be eating it. Because, we're just destroying food. And go back to tasting food and remembering what vegetables taste like and what fruits taste like. And, it's good for all of us. And going back to basics, I think it's where I would go with just general well-being and general for dealing with stress, dealing with anxiety. Simple living is a good way. We all have the stresses of society, and we have the stresses of life, but making time for yourself before it gets too late is really, really important for your stress, for your anxiety. Recognizing how things actually do impact on us, things like social media, things like I work in a school and we see the negative effects of it. And I'm not just saying that we don't use social media, of course I'm not, but just be conscious of how it could impact on you. And because I always say to my children, these devices are made to make you addictive. So we're not saying, that I'm trying to control you or anything, but I'm trying to control us all, because otherwise, it takes over your life. So just be conscious about it, and get a pet. That's always a good one.
I like that. Yeah. So in addition to what you said, you see, we need to be actually conscious about what we are consuming. You see, food is not about just filling the tummy. It's just about making sure that we feed the cells. So anytime you're about to eat anything, ask yourself, is the what I'm going to put in my body, is it going to really feed my system of my cells? It's not about your taste buds alone, but we need to, because adequate nutrition is so important for our health. Without that, we can't have the health. It may affect your organ function and all this kind of disease we are talking about. So we really need to stick to it. And then, of course, we don't use supplement as the main show. The food is the main one. Then obviously we can add supplement to it to help. But even that one, we need to be selective. For example, people go to the shop and buy things like vitamin E, which we know it's a good antioxidant. It's also good for cardiovascular health, stuff like that. But supplements also, we need to help people to know what they are buying. You can't just walk in there and buy anything. For example, I'll use vitamin E as an example. Vitamin E, most of the shop, they are selling the main ingredients in vitamin E are the tocopherols and the tocotrienols, and we have the alpha beta gamma tocopherol, alpha beta gamma tocotrienols. But most of the shop, including Holland and whatever, and they are selling stuff. And not only that, the other company, they are selling what they isolate one component of, for example, the E family. So you may find a shop selling D-tocopherol alone or D-tocotrienol alone. But vitamin E is a family, so the best way to get the full spectrum in your system is to enjoy the full benefit, to get the full spectrum of the vitamin E, both the tocotrienols and the tocopherols and the tocotrienols. So once you are going there, and another thing I will mention, when you're buying vitamin E, for example, you see the DL is a signified synthetic. If you see the D, it's natural. So when you're buying vitamin E, look at D tocopherol, not DL. DL synthetic is all, but rather I prefer people to look for the whole spectrum of those things. So please, if you want to take supplements, see a professional, a nutritionist, to guide you to know what to buy. Don't just rush and buy anything.
I think one thing I just as Michael was talking, I just thought there's a nutritionist that said that every time you eat something, you're either healing your body or actually feeding a disease. So you have to make a choice. What would you like? What would you prefer? Every time you put a food, any spoonful of food in your mouth, you think to yourself, am I healing my body or am I actually feeding a disease?
Wow, great words to finish on there. Thanks, Rosie and Michael. Yeah, brilliant. So lots of food for thought. And food to eat as well. And covered lots of great topics, and didn't even get started on a couple of the others we had. So maybe we'll have to do another one at some point. So brilliant. Thanks for your time, Rosie. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.